Alex had been working on the mining colony for 2 years. It was a rough, desolate place, where humans and aliens coexisted but didn't exactly get along. The planet was filled with hard labor and little hope. Alex had come to the planet too. Find a better life, but it was harder than he had imagined. One day, as he walked through the marketplace on his break, he saw something that made his heart stop. In the center of the town square stood a Beastwoman, tall, muscular, with bright yellow eyes and fur that covered most of her body. Her face was fierce, almost regal, but it was twisted in pain. She was tied to a post, and a group of overseers stood around her. They were holding whips, their faces cold and uninterested as they prepared to lash out at her.
Alex
couldn't help but stare. He had heard rumors about the Beastwomen, about their strength and their courage. They were known to be warriors, proud, fierce, and untamed. But now, this warrior was being punished in front of everyone. The overseers started to strike her. Each whip made a harsh sound as it hit her furred skin. The Beastwoman's body jerked with each blow, but she didn't make a sound. She stood tall, her eyes burning with defiance, but her body was breaking. The crowd around her was silent, watching with an unsettling curiosity. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the anger rise inside him. He hated seeing this. Hated that this woman, who seemed so strong, was being treated like an animal. He didn't know her, but he couldn't stand to watch her suffer. He stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't someone who could make a difference. But deep down, he felt something stir. He had to do something. He couldn't just stand there without thinking. Alex started to move forward. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, but he couldn't just watch anymore. As he got closer, the overseers noticed him. One of them, a tall alien with blue skin, turned to face him. "Stay out of this, human," the overseer said, his voice cold and dismissive. "This is not your business." Alex hesitated. His feet felt like they were glued to the ground. He was just a worker, a nobody in a place where nobody cared. But the Beastwoman's eyes caught his, and for a moment, it felt like she was asking him for help. Her gaze was sharp, like a warning, but also full of something else, desperation. It was then that Alex made a decision. He couldn't just walk away, couldn't live with himself if he did. He moved forward again, but this time with purpose. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. The overseers froze for a moment, confused by his boldness. The Beastwoman's eyes flashed in his direction, surprised by his sudden interruption. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The world around them stood still. "What did you say?" the blue-skinned overseer asked, his voice low and threatening. "I said stop," Alex repeated, taking another step forward. "This isn't right. She hasn't done anything to deserve this." The overseers exchanged glances. One of them sneered. "You're a fool, human. She's disobeyed the commands of the leaders. That's punishment." Alex could feel the anger bubbling inside him. He wasn't going to back down. "She's not an animal to be punished like this. She's a warrior. She deserves respect, not torture." The overseers laughed. They didn't take him seriously. To them, Alex was just another human, weak, afraid, and easily controlled. But Alex wasn't afraid anymore. He moved closer to the Beastwoman, ignoring the looks of the overseers. She was still standing tall, despite the pain. Her fur was matted with blood, and her breathing was heavy, but her eyes, those bright, defiant eyes, never wavered. They held something Alex couldn't quite understand: strength, pride, and a fierce determination that spoke louder than anything the overseers could do to her. "Please," Alex said, his voice soft now. "Let me help you." For the first time, the Beastwoman spoke.
Ow.
Her voice was rough, but there was an undeniable fire in it. "Why?" she asked, her gaze piercing him. "Why would you help me? You're a human. You don't care about me," Alex swallowed hard. He didn't know the answer. All he knew was that he couldn't stand to watch her suffer anymore. I can't just stand here," he said. "You don't deserve this." The overseers were losing patience. The tall blue alien stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Alex. "Enough of this," the overseer growled. "Get out of the way, human. You have no right to interfere." Before Alex could react, one of the overseers grabbed him by the arm, pulling him back. But Alex didn't fight back. He was focused on the Beastwoman, on her courage, on the way she stood tall despite everything. It was then that something unexpected happened. The Beastwoman shifted in her restraints, using the last bit of her strength. She snapped the ropes that held her in place and broke free. The overseers reacted in shock, too slow to stop her. She turned and faced Alex, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read: thankfulness, anger, or maybe both. She took a few steps toward him, her body trembling from the pain, but still strong. Then, without a word, she reached out and grabbed Alex's hand. Her grip was firm, and for a moment Alex didn't know what to say. The overseers shouted in disbelief. They were too stunned to react. The Beastwoman looked at Alex, her gaze softer now. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You, have saved me." Alex didn't know how to respond. He was just a worker, just a man who had tried to do the right thing, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he had made a difference. After the Beastwoman had broken free, everything seemed to slow down. The overseers were frozen, caught off guard by her sudden strength, but Alex didn't have time to think about them. His mind was focused on the woman standing in front of him. She was taller than him, much stronger, her muscles rippling as she adjusted to standing without the weight of her restraints. The blood on her fur was still fresh, but her stance was powerful. She seemed like a warrior who had been pushed too far and was now standing up for herself. She still held Alex's hand. Her grip was firm, but there was a gentleness to it. Alex felt her strength, but he also felt something else's vulnerability. It was as if in that one simple action she was placing her trust in him, and that realization hit him hard. Her yellow eyes locked with his, and for a brief moment, Alex saw something in them that he hadn't expected: gratitude. "Thank you," she said again, this time her voice softer. Her voice was rough, but there was an honesty in it. "You didn't have to do that." Alex swallowed, unsure of what to say. His heart was racing. His hand was still in hers, and despite the situation, he didn't want to pull away. Never felt this kind of connection with anyone before, not like this. "I couldn't just watch," Alex said, his voice low. "I had to do something." The Beastwoman looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. "Why? Why help me? You don't even know me." Alex thought for a moment. His mind raced, trying to find the right words, but nothing came out the way he intended. Never been good with words. He had been raised to believe in doing the right thing, even if it was hard. But this was different. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I can't stand to see someone treated like that. Not anyone." Seemed to consider his words for a long time. Silence between them was thick, heavy with the weight of their shared moment. Then she let go of his hand and stepped back slightly, as if she was uncertain about trusting him. The overseers had finally snapped out of their shock. The tall, blue-skinned overseer barked an order, and the others began to move toward them, weapons drawn. Alex's heart raced again, his pulse pounding in his ears. He didn't know what to do. There were too many of them, and he was just one person. "Run!" the Beastwoman suddenly shouted. She grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him towards the nearby alleyway. Without thinking, Alex followed her. His heart was pounding, not just from fear, but from the sheer adrenaline of the moment. He didn't know what she planned, but he knew he had to stay with her as they sprinted down the narrow alley. Alex could hear the overseers shouting in the distance, their steps following close behind. The Beastwoman was fast, her long legs carrying her effortlessly. Alex struggled to keep up, but he didn't let go of her. Couldn't, not after everything that had just happened. They reached a small abandoned building at the end of the alley. The Beastwoman pushed open a door and pulled him inside, slamming it shut behind them. She stood in front of the door, breathing heavily, but still alert, her eyes scanning for any signs of danger. Alex leaned against the wall, his breath coming in short gasps. "What now?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. The Beastwoman didn't answer right away. She was standing still, her body tense, as if waiting for something. Alex looked at her, noticing how she seemed to be holding herself together despite everything that had just happened. She was clearly in pain, her body still bruised from the beating, but there was no sign of weakness in her posture. "I don't know," she said finally. "I don't even know why I'm trusting you. You could have just left me there, but you didn't." Alex wasn't sure what to say to that. He had never really thought about it. He just did what felt right. But now that they were here, hiding from the overseers, it was clear that there was no going back. "I don't want to leave you," Alex said quietly. I don't know what else to do. I don't want to see you hurt." She glanced at him, her eyes searching his face, as if trying to figure him out. After a long pause, she sighed and looked down at the floor, the tension in her body easing slightly. "You should," she muttered. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into. You think helping me is the right thing to do, but it's not. You'll only get yourself in trouble. They'll come for you too, just like they did for me." Alex shook his head. "Already in trouble, but I can't just let you suffer." For the first time, the Beastwoman smiled faintly. It wasn't a big smile, but it was enough for Alex to see a glimmer of the woman she used to be. "You're stubborn," she said with a hint of amusement. "I guess that's why you helped me." "Guess so," Alex replied with a small laugh. "I just ... couldn't leave you there." She nodded slowly, her expression softening. "Don't know what it's like to be treated like that, to be seen as nothing more than a tool for others to use." Alex wanted to argue, but he didn't. He knew she was right. He didn't know what it was like to be broken down like that, to be beaten and punished for standing up for what was right. He could feel it. In his chest, a weight that had settled there since the moment he saw her being beaten. "Maybe I don't," he said quietly, "but I'm here now, and I'm not going to leave you." The Beastwoman was silent for a long time. Then she took a step toward him, her gaze serious. "If you're going to help me, it's not going to be easy. There's a lot I've seen, a lot I've done, things you might not understand. But if you want to stand with me, you'll have to be strong. I don't know how long we can keep running." Alex nodded. He was already in this, whether he understood everything or not. But one thing was clear, he wasn't going to walk away from her. Not after everything she had gone through. "Then let's figure it out together," Alex said, his voice steady. For the first time since they had met, the Beastwoman gave him a real smile. A smile that showed trust, and maybe even a little hope. The night was quiet in the small building they had taken refuge in. Alex sat on the cold floor, his back against the wall, his mind racing. His thoughts kept returning to the Beastwoman Nira. She had told him her name. Ira was stronger than anyone he had ever met. Yet she had been broken. She had been punished, and now she was on the run. Everything had changed so quickly, and now he was part of something bigger than he could have ever imagined. Nira sat across from him, her sharp, yellow eyes reflecting the faint light from a nearby window. She had been silent for a while, as if processing everything that had happened. She was still in pain from the beating, but her determination hadn't faltered. Her body might have been bruised, but her spirit was unbroken. "You're sure they'll come after us?" Alex asked quietly, breaking the silence. Nira's eyes flickered to him. "They won't stop," she said. Her voice was low, steady, but there was a hint of fear behind it. "The overseers don't forgive. I disobeyed them, and now I'm a target. They'll send soldiers after me. They'll send everything they have to make sure I'm punished." Alex nodded, his heart heavy. He knew she was right. The system that controlled the planet was ruthless. He had seen it before. Workers punished for small mistakes. Rebels crushed without mercy. But Nira wasn't just anyone. She was a warrior, a Beastwoman, and she had stood up against the system. Alex respected her for that. "What can we do?" Alex asked, his voice filled with determination. Nira stood up slowly, her muscles tense from the earlier fight. She walked over to a small table in the corner, where Alex had set down some supplies they had taken from the marketplace. Her movements were deliberate, controlled. "We need to leave the planet," she said. "If we stay here, they'll catch us. We have to get off-world." Alex stood up too. "How do we do that?" he asked. "There's a spaceport, but it's heavily guarded. We won't get past it without a plan." Nira turned to him, a glint of something dangerous in her eyes. "We don't need to get past them," she said, her voice cold and confident. "We'll take their ship." Alex blinked, surprised by the suddenness of her words. "What do you mean?" Naira gave him a small, knowing smile. "There's a transport ship leaving the spaceport tomorrow night. It's not well guarded. I can get us on board." Alex's mind raced as he thought through the plan. It was risky, extremely risky, but it was their only chance. "You think we can make it?" he asked. "I know we can," Naira replied firmly. "I've been watching the spaceport for weeks. I know their schedules. I know the patrols. We'll slip through the security, take the ship, and get out of here. Once we're off the planet, we can figure out where to go next." Alex hesitated. He didn't want to question her. She had been through more than he could ever imagine, and she was smart, but it still felt too dangerous. "And what about the crew on the ship? Won't they try to stop us?" Naira's expression darkened. "They'll try, but we won't give them a choice." Alex met her gaze, and for the first time since meeting her, he truly believed that she could do what she said. He could see the strength in her, the fire in her eyes. She had survived so much already. Now they were in this together. "We'll need supplies," Alex said, taking a deep breath. "Food, weapons, anything that can help us once we're on board. If we're going to make it, we'll need everything we can get." Naira nodded. "I'll take care of that," she said, her tone decisive. "You focus on getting us to the ship." Alex felt a strange sense of comfort in her words. He had never felt like a leader, but now he had a purpose. They were a team. He would do whatever it took to help her get away from the planet and escape the people who had tried to break her. The plan was simple, but it was also dangerous. They would have to act quickly, quietly. The spaceport was the heart of the planet's transportation system, and there were always guards. But Naira had a way of blending into the shadows, and she knew the paths better than anyone. It was their best chance. As the hours passed, the two of them worked together to gather what they needed. Alex found some old clothes that would help them blend in while Naira searched for the right tools. They knew they didn't have much time. Night would be their only chance to escape. Alex's thoughts kept returning to one thing. Why had he risked everything for a stranger? Naira was fierce, strong, and independent, and yet, in that moment, she had trusted him. She had let him in. That meant something, and now they had a bond. Something unspoken but real. Couldn't let her down. At last the night arrived. Naira's plan was in motion, and Alex could feel the tension in the air. They slipped out of the building, making their way through the dark streets. Alex's heart was in his throat as they passed through the town. The sounds of the colony's late-night activities echoed around them, but they were careful, moving swiftly and silently. When they reached the spaceport, Alex's nerves were on edge. The massive metal walls of the spaceport loomed in front of them. The entrance was heavily guarded, but Naira led them to a hidden side gate, one that was rarely used. She moved with purpose, and Alex followed closely behind. They slipped inside without a sound, hiding in the shadows as they moved toward the docking area. The ship they needed was just ahead. It was a transport vessel, nothing fancy, but it would get them off this planet. Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. They were so close, but they weren't alone. A pair of guards walked past, their voices low as they talked. Alex's heart skipped a beat. They were getting too close. Naira gestured for him to hide, and they quickly ducked behind a stack of crates. The guards walked past without noticing them. Alex exhaled quietly, his muscles tense. They had to stay sharp. The transport ship was just a few yards away now. They were so close. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. This was too easy. Naira's face remained calm, but he could see the tension in her posture. She had sensed it too. "Get ready," she whispered. "We're almost there." The night air was cold, and Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he crouched behind the crates, his eyes fixed on the transport ship. He could hear the quiet hum of the engines, a sound that should have been comforting but now felt like a countdown. They were so close, and yet Alex could feel the tension rising. NYRA standing next to him was the picture of calm. She had a look of intense focus, her sharp eyes scanning every movement in the shadows. Her muscles were tense, her posture still and alert. She had been through so much more than Alex could ever imagine, and yet here she was, leading them. Both toward freedom. She had a plan, and Alex trusted her completely. They waited in silence, listening for any sounds that might indicate they were being watched. Alex's mind was racing. What if they got caught? What if the guards noticed them? But Naira's presence gave him a sense of calm. She had done this before. She knew how to move, how to fight, and how to survive. The guards had passed by earlier. The path to the transport ship was clear. The spaceport was quiet at this hour, but Alex knew that wouldn't last. The moment they made their move, things would escalate quickly. They would have to act fast, and they would have to be careful. Naira gave him a slight nod, her signal too. Move. Without a word, they both slipped out of their hiding spot and crept toward the ship, staying low to the ground. The shadows were their cover, and Alex followed Naira's every move. She moved like a shadow herself, quick, quiet, efficient. They reached the base of the transport ship, and Naira paused for a moment to check their surroundings. The ship's hatch was on the far side, and there was no one in sight. The guards were nowhere to be seen. But that didn't mean they were safe. The spaceport's security was tight, and if anyone saw them now, it would be in serious trouble. Naira moved first, heading toward the hatch with a quiet determination. Alex followed closely behind, his nerves on edge. He could feel his heart racing, but he kept his focus. He couldn't afford to fail now. As they reached the hatch, Naira signaled for Alex to stay back. She crouched down in front of the control panel, her fingers moving swiftly over the buttons. Alex watched her, admiring how confident she was. She was a warrior, a fighter, and she had a strength that Alex could barely comprehend. He had never met anyone like her. A soft click echoed through the quiet spaceport, and the hatch slowly opened. Naira stood up, glancing around once more before stepping inside the ship. Alex followed her, his mind still racing, but the sight of the interior of the ship gave him a moment of relief. They were inside. They had made it. Inside the ship was dark, the only light coming from the low-level panels along the walls. Naira moved with purpose, leading Alex through the narrow corridors. The ship was much smaller than he had expected, but it was well equipped for short travel. The walls were lined with crates and supplies, but there was no sign of a crew. Naira moved swiftly to the cockpit at the front of the ship. She didn't hesitate. She was in control, and Alex was starting to believe that they might actually pull this off. They were getting away. They were leaving this cursed planet behind. As Naira took the pilot's seat, Alex stood by the door, keeping watch. Didn't know how long they had before someone realized they were on board, but he was determined to stay alert. He couldn't afford to relax, not yet. Ready? Naira asked, her voice calm but sharp. Alex nodded. Ready? She worked quickly, pressing buttons and pulling levers to bring the ship to life. The engines hummed as the systems powered up. The transport ship was old, but it still worked. Naira was a skilled pilot, and Alex trusted her to get them out of here. The ship's engines roared to life, and the metal doors of the spaceport began to close behind them. Alex held his breath. They were about to leave the only home he had known. For so long, but he didn't feel the same fear he had felt before. This time he felt something else. Hope. We're not safe yet, Naira said, her voice focused. Once we're out of the atmosphere, we'll be able to escape. But we have to make it past the patrols first. Alex nodded, his mind racing with the thought of what was ahead. The journey wasn't over. They still had to get past the planet's defenses, and that meant dealing with the ships that patrolled the skies. But Naira had been through this before. She knew what to do. The ship lifted off the ground, slowly rising into the dark sky. Alex watched through the small window, seeing the lights of the colony fade away beneath them. It was strange, leaving everything behind. The people, the place, the danger was all fading into the distance. They were free for now, but then, just as they reached the edge of the atmosphere, an alarm blared. Damn, Naira muttered, slamming her fist on the control panel. I knew this was too easy. Alex's heart sank. The sound of the alarm meant only one thing: someone had noticed. The overseers had likely sent a patrol to catch them before they could escape. It wouldn't let them go that easily. I can't lose them, Naira said, her eyes scanning the controls. Need to move fast. Hold on tight. Without warning. Naira pulled the controls, and the ship lurched forward. Alex gripped the seat in front of him as the ship shot forward, speeding away from the planet's atmosphere. The lights of the colony were now a distant blur, and the stars stretched out before them. The ship jolted as Naira expertly navigated through the debris and the incoming patrol ships. The sound of their engines roared in the distance, but Naira was quick, maneuvering the ship with practiced ease. She didn't look scared. She looked determined. "We've got this," Naira said through gritted teeth. "We're getting out of here." Alex looked out the window, watching as the patrol ships tried to close in, but Naira was too fast. The ship swerved, narrowly avoiding a blast from one of the patrols. The stars outside blurred as Naira expertly piloted them through the chaos. Then, with one final twist of the controls, Naira broke through. The patrol ships were far behind, and the open expanse of space was ahead of them. The ship's engines hummed steadily now, and the alarms had stopped. They were free. Alex let out a long breath. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. Naira didn't answer right away. She just kept her eyes on the controls, her hands steady as she piloted them further into the unknown. But Alex knew that, despite everything they had been through, this was just the beginning. They had escaped the planet, but there was still so much ahead of them, and no matter what came next. Alex knew one thing for sure. He would stand by Naira. They had made it this far together, and together they would face whatever came next. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound in the cockpit as Alex and Naira soared through the cold emptiness of space. The stars outside twinkled like tiny diamonds, and the vastness of the galaxy stretched endlessly before them. Weight of the danger they had just escaped still lingered in the air, but for the first time in a long while, Alex felt something else. Hope. They had made it. They were out of the clutches of the overseers, free from the planet that had tried to break them. The journey ahead was uncertain, but that was part of what made it exciting. They were no longer prisoners. They had choices now. As Naira piloted the ship with calm precision, Alex found himself glancing at her from time to time. She was strong, unyielding, yet there was a quiet sadness in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. She had been through so much, beaten, punished, and hunted for daring to stand up for herself. Yet despite it all, she had never given in. Her will to survive was unbreakable. Alex turned his attention back to the controls, trying to distract himself from the uncomfortable silence that hung between them. They had been through a lot together in the past few hours, and though they hadn't spoken much, there was an unspoken bond between them now. He wasn't sure where this journey would take them, but he knew one thing for certain: he would stand. By her side, Naira shifted in her seat, breaking the silence. "We should find a place to lay low for a while," she said, her voice steady but tinged with wariness. "It won't be long before the overseers send a pursuit ship. We can't let them catch us." Alex nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They were far from safe, but they had a chance. "Do you know where we should go?" Naira hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "There's an old mining colony on a nearby moon. It's abandoned, but it's isolated enough that no one will bother us. We can stay there until we figure out what to do next." Alex didn't question her. He trusted her judgment. "Sounds good to me." As Naira adjusted the ship's course, Alex couldn't help but wonder what the future held. What would happen when they reached the moon? Would they be able to stay hidden long enough to figure out their next move? Or would their freedom be short-lived? Turned to look at Naira again, his thoughts shifting. She had given him her trust, and in return, he had given her his. But they both knew that their journey wasn't just about escaping the overseers. They had to find a way to survive in a galaxy that didn't care about them. A galaxy that saw them as nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. But Alex wasn't like the rest of them. He had seen enough suffering, enough injustice, to last a lifetime. And now he was determined to make a difference, no matter the cost. As the moon came into view, Naira slowed the ship's descent, guiding them toward the mining colony she had mentioned. The once thriving settlement was now nothing more than an abandoned ruin, its buildings weathered by time and neglect. The moon was barren, with no sign of life for miles around. It was the perfect place to hide. The ship touched down softly, its engines winding down as Naira brought it to a complete stop. She turned to Alex, her expression serious. "We'll stay here for now. We need to rest, but we also need to be ready. I don't trust that we'll have much time before someone comes looking for us." Alex nodded, his heart still racing from the adrenaline of their escape. "Understood. We'll make sure we're ready for anything." The two of them exited the ship, stepping out into the cold, dusty air of the abandoned colony. The buildings around them were silent, their windows shattered, and their doors hanging off their hinges. It was a desolate place, but it was also a reminder of how far they had come. Once, this had been a thriving settlement. Now, it was just a ghost town. They made their way to one of the old buildings and found a place to rest. There was no need for words. The exhaustion of the past few days was catching up to them both. Naira collapsed onto a worn-out couch in one corner, while Alex sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. The silence between them was comfortable now, not heavy with tension, but filled with the quiet understanding that they had both been through something extraordinary for the first time since they had met. Alex felt a sense of peace. They were safe, at least for the moment. But as he sat there, he couldn't help but think about the future. What would they do next? What was their purpose now that they were free? Naira's voice broke through his thoughts. "Ow! You know, we can't stay here forever," she said softly, not looking at him. "This place might be safe for now, but it won't be long before someone tracks us down. The galaxy is too big to hide forever." Alex looked at her, his eyes meeting hers. "I know," he said quietly, "but we can figure that out later. Right now, we need to rest. We need to heal." Naira nodded, though she didn't seem convinced. "I've been running for so long," she said. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being a fugitive." Alex understood. Both were. But for now, there was nothing they could do but wait. The world around them was vast and dangerous, and they were small in comparison. But together, they could face whatever came next. They could fight for a future, even if it seemed impossible. "We'll figure it out," Alex said firmly. "We'll find a way together." Naira turned her head to look at him, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. It was faint, but it was there. She didn't say anything, but the look she gave him spoke volumes. The two of them sat there in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. The weight of their pasts still hung over them, but there was a sense of possibility now, a sense that maybe they could build something new. Maybe they could find a place where they weren't just running from their pasts, but building toward something better. As the hours passed, the exhaustion that had been building inside Alex slowly began to fade. The tension that had been in his muscles loosened, and he allowed himself to relax. It had been a long journey, but it wasn't over yet. They still had a long way to go, and many challenges ahead. But for now, they had time. Time to rest. Time to heal, and when the time came, they would face whatever came next together. The days passed slowly on the abandoned moon, but the sense of danger never quite left Alex and Naira. The mining colony, once filled with life and activity, now felt like a tomb. Dust covered the floor, and the empty buildings echoed with silence. They had made their home here for the time being, but neither of them could forget the pursuit that was still out there. They couldn't stay hidden forever. Naira spent most of her time checking the ship's systems, assuring that they could leave at a moment's notice if necessary. She was meticulous, her sharp eyes catching every detail. Alex helped where he could, fixing small parts of the ship that had worn down over time, though he was no expert. But he did his best. He had learned quickly that in this new life, survival depended on doing whatever it took to stay alive. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned dark, Alex found Naira sitting outside, her legs crossed beneath her, staring. Out at the stars, the air was cool, and the silence was thick. It was a peaceful moment, but Alex knew it wouldn't last. There was always the threat of the overseers, always the fear of being found. He walked over and sat beside her, careful not to disturb the quiet. She didn't acknowledge him at first, but Alex knew she was aware of his presence. He'd learned a lot about her in the past few days. She was strong, But she also carried the weight of her past, her battles, her scars, the years of pain she had endured. She didn't talk about it much, but he could see it in her eyes. After a long moment, Naira spoke, her voice softer than usual. "Do you ever wonder if we'll ever be truly free?" she asked, her eyes still fixed on the stars. Alex hesitated. It was a question he had thought about many times, but he wasn't sure how to answer. They'd escaped the overseers, yes, but there was no guarantee that they wouldn't be hunted again. The galaxy was vast, and they were just two people trying. To survive? I don't know, Alex admitted. But I think we're freer than we were before. We have choices now. We're not stuck in the same place. We have the chance to make a future for ourselves. Naira turned her head to look at him, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Alex felt like she was studying him, trying to figure him out. It wasn't like the fierce glare she had given him when they first met. This was different. This was softer, more searching. And what if the future is just more of the same? Naira asked, her voice almost a whisper. What if we just end up running again, always looking over our shoulders, never able to settle down? Alex thought. About that, it was a real fear. They had already been on the run for so long. There was no guarantee that things would ever get better. But he couldn't accept the idea that they would just give up. Then we'll keep moving, Alex said, his voice steady. We'll keep fighting. Together. Naira's eyes softened, just for a moment. Then she stood up, her movements graceful and purposeful. I don't know what the future holds, she said, turning toward the ship. But for now, we're alive. That's more than most people get. Alex stood up too, following her back to the ship. They had work to do, and there was no time to waste. But as they walked, Alex felt a shift in the air, something that felt different from before. It wasn't just about survival anymore. We're starting to build something together. The next morning, they set to work. Naira was still determined to get the ship ready for whatever came next. But there was a quiet sense of purpose in the way she moved, something that hadn't been there before. She wasn't just fixing the ship out of necessity anymore. It was almost like she was preparing for something bigger, something that would give them both a chance at a new life. Alex helped her, doing whatever he could. They worked side by side, and even though the tasks were small, there was a sense of connection that grew between them. They didn't need to speak much. Silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was a shared understanding, a quiet acknowledgement that they were in this together. As the days passed, Alex and Naira grew more confident in their new life. They started to make plans, talking about where they could go next, what they needed to do to stay ahead of the overseers. The fear of being found was still there, but it wasn't as overwhelming as it had been. They were starting to build a sense of security, even if it was temporary. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together in the cockpit of the ship, looking out at the stars. The ship was almost ready. They would be able to leave soon. But this time, Alex didn't feel the same urgency he had felt before. The fear of being caught wasn't gone, but it didn't control him anymore. He knew that no matter what happened, they could face it together. I've been thinking, Naira said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of something new in it. When we leave this place, we'll have to keep moving, but maybe it's time to stop running from the past. Alex looked at her, confused. What do you mean? I mean, Naira continued, her gaze fixed on the stars. We can't keep hiding forever. We can't keep looking over our shoulders. At some point, we have to take a stand. We have to stop letting the galaxy control our lives. Alex felt a surge of hope. He had never heard her speak like this before. It was as if in that moment she had found a new purpose, one that wasn't about running or surviving. It was about something bigger. I'm with you, Alex said quietly. Whatever you decide to do, I'll be by your side, Naira turned to look at him, and for the first time she smiled. It wasn't a small smile. It was real, filled with a sense of possibility. Then we'll do it, she said. We'll stop running. We'll make our own future. Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time since they had met, he didn't feel like they were just trying to survive. They were building something. Together, the journey ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in a long while, Alex felt a sense of peace. They had each other, and that, he realized, was enough.